So, yeah. So my name is Mafi Shisha Nomri, and I am one of the Australian counselors in Edwise, based in Mumbai office, which is in the Santa Cruz branch. So today's topic about the live session is going to be about study in Australia, and why should a student choose to study in Australia as one of their popular destination at the moment. So as we all know, Edwise is one of the leading overseas education consultant as well. So we've been in the business from the last 29 years, since 1991. So we guide students from end-to-end process, right from your counseling, your visa assistance, shortlisting the universities, getting you into your dream university, end-to-end process. So let's begin with the topic about studying in Australia for today evening. Already there has been a slight delay. So why is Australia one of the most preferable destination? It has always been the UK or US, which has been one of the top preferred destination. So Australia is one of the third most popular international student destination in the world. It is currently home to nearly 7 lakh international students, where the country is welcoming a lot of overseas students in the country. And there has been a slight increase as well since 2017, with the growth of 11% of international students who opt to choose Australia as one of the destination. Australia also boasts in having the top universities, which Australia itself has the top group of 8 universities, but under it the 6 top universities come under the top 100 universities. So namely, which come under the Times Higher Education World University ranking under 100. So the top 6 of them, among those universities, are located in Australia, namely University of Melbourne, University of Sydney, University of Queensland, University of New South Wales, Australian National University, Monash University. These 6 universities are one of the top universities in Australia for students. Is very ranking specific in choosing Australia. Like University of Melbourne ranks number 1 in Australia and has a QS ranking of 31 ranking as well. So while the students opt for studying in Australia, it's got one of the best higher education system in the world. It has an emphasis on the international student report, almost 90% of the student satisfaction in living and studying in Australia as one of the favorable destination, mainly due to the climatic condition. As compared to countries like UK or Canada, it is the weather condition in Australia is similarly quite favorable to Indian students, which is slightly on the warmer side, like certain states like Queensland, which is warm throughout the year as well. So Australian government as well has initiated a good amount of scholarships for international students, around about 300 million Australian dollar investing for international students to come in the country to study in Australia. Australia provides a world-leading education in different backgrounds of your study areas. Mainly if students choose to study in humanities, engineering and IT, whether it's life sciences, whether it's social sciences, clinical, preclinical and health as well. These are the top most background and field where students opt for studying in Australia. So the Australian education system, it offers primary, secondary and the tertiary education linked with across the world. So when a student eventually study in Australia, whether you are doing your undergrad or your postgrad, once you complete the program, when a student wants to move to any part of the globe, the degree is recognized globally in terms of when a student opt for a job opportunity, whether they want to move into a different country. So yeah, that's one of the major reasons that students should choose Australia. And when it comes to the cost of living in Australia, The cost of living, it's 20,290 Australian dollar, which is slightly on the higher side for a living cost in Australia per annum. And your tuition fees for undergrad, bachelor degree can vary anywhere from 20,000 Australian dollar to 45 Australian dollar as well. And for your master's degree in Australia, it can round about from 22,000 Australian dollar to 50,000 Australian dollar as your tuition fees for your master's degree in Australia. So besides that, why is Australia so favorable? Main thing is your education system of what you have here in India, where it's acceptable in Australia after your graduation, your 15 years of education, how it is in Canada, where they require 16 years, even in US as well. But in Australia, a student can directly go after the graduation. In India, they can directly go for their master's degree and study in a university without doing a postgrad diploma, because they require 15 years. That's one of the major reasons as well. It's favorable and acceptable. The courses available at UG and graduate level are doctoral degree, there's master's degree coursework, there's taught program, there's graduate certificate, bachelor's degree. So your UG can vary anywhere from 3 to 5 years depending on the program that you are opting for. For your master's degree in Australia, it's always preferable that a student opt or choose a program which is 2 years full-time coursework. Because in Australia, to be eligible for your post-study work visa after your master's degree, the student has to complete 104 weeks, wherein the duration has to be a proper master's coursework of 2 years to be eligible for your post-study work visa. So now, when you come to talk about the post-study work rights in Australia, which is one of the major benefit, why is Australia one of the leading destination, is when a student is opting to study in the regional areas of Australia, which is Canberra, Perth, Tasmania, Adelaide, so which is located in South Australia, and Perth, which is in Western Australia. So you would be eligible for a 3 years of post-study work visa. So in case a student is doing their master's degree in Australia with 2 years and additional of the 3 years, so you would be eligible to stay back there for 3 years, which altogether 5 years. So if a student is looking for future settlement, for settling in the country, in terms of permanent residency, because it is a country that is inviting immigrants at the moment as well. And that is another added advantage of choosing regional areas. And adding to that as well, there are universities like University of Adelaide, which is again a group of 8, which is also located in South Australia, and Western Australia, which is Perth. There is University of Western Australia, which is among the group of 8 again, which is located in Perth. So it varies what a student look at, whether if you choose to study in Melbourne or in Sydney or in Brisbane, it would just be 2 years of post-study work visa, whether you're doing your UG or your postgrad. So this is a little bit insight about the post-study work rights in Australia. So as we all know that Australia is currently one of the 3rd most popular destination for international students. Currently, one of the major aspect is, we all know Australia is an English-speaking country. So when it comes to the communication as well, there is no language barrier in an English-speaking country, where students can get comfortable in living and residing in that country. And another added advantage is that it is the diversity of students coming from a lot of 140 to 150 countries coming to Australia, getting that global exposure. So the diversity of students is one of the main reasons. Global academic recognition after you complete the program, wherein your degree is recognized globally, your scholarships, you work while studying. So now let's talk about work while study in Australia. So when you're on your student visa, being an international student in Australia, a student is allowed to work there. A part-time work, where they call it your part-time. You are allowed to work 20 hours per week during your course period, and that's when a student can take care of their expenses, maybe not the major ones like your tuition fees, but at least when you can take care of your living costs as well in Australia. So a student can earn their minimum wage vary from 10,000 Australian dollar to 15 Australian dollar. That is the average wage per hour that a student can earn during the course period. And a student can work either on campus or off campus. Both they're allowed to work. Australia generally offers great work opportunities as well for students. And when you look at the student visa process as well, it's a very streamlined, straight cut process, which is pretty simple, where you have to apply for your student visa, which is a subclass 500. So you don't have an interview, it's just based on your paperwork when it comes to your student visa, applying for a student visa to Australia. And besides that, let's have a look at the 10 most popular courses which is popular in Australia when students choose Australia as their destination. One of them is accountancy. If you have a look at the skill occupation list as well, you'll have to look for a program which is on demand in Australia. Accountancy, actual science, there's architecture, biomedical engineering, there's earth sciences, computer science, and information technology. Psychology and physiotherapy is also a pretty popular programs where a student opt for studying in Australia. So, being said about the reasons why students should choose Australia, besides the added advantage of the post-study work rights, where you can work while studying, the diverse culture in Australia, safe and secure place. So now let's come to the entry requirement. When you talk about the entry requirement about studying in Australia, if a student wishes to go for your undergrad in Australia, you have to get a good academic record in your higher secondary here in India, whether you're studying from a Maharashtra board or maybe your state board or your CBSE or your ISC, your ICSE or ISC, yeah. So you have to get a decent academic record score. If you're aiming for the group of 8, the top universities, you would comparatively need to have a higher percentage. Like I said, if you're aiming for the group of 8 universities. So you'll have to give in your IELTS. IELTS is a mandatory exam that you have to give because India is not an English-speaking country. So we definitely have to give the IELTS, which is the International English Language Test System. A student needs to score 6.0 band overall in your reading, writing, listening, and speaking for your entry requirement for your undergrad. And TOEFL you need to score around 79, and your PTE 50 to 58 for your UG. That would be the entry requirement for your UG. When it comes to your master's degree, in your IELTS, you need to score a 6.5 band overall in your reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And you'll have to have a good academic record as well in your bachelor's degree from a recognized university in India to be eligible to study in Australia in the universities. So every university varies when you're looking out for a program to study in Australia, because some of them would require work experience depending on the program that you're opting for. The basic minimum requirement, like I told you, if you're looking for the top universities, you need to have a first class and above. And for the other programs, like if a student is looking for an MBA program, you would require a work experience as well, along with that to have a good academic record for studying in Australia. So looking into the cities of studying in Australia, so you would students would mainly look at cities like Melbourne, which is one of the most livable city. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of it. And Melbourne is very student friendly. They've got the trams within the city where students do not have to pay for it. And there are very good universities in Melbourne itself, like RMIT, Deakin, Swinburne, Monash, Unimel. So it is one of the favorable place for students when they choose Australia, and then they choose Melbourne as well as one of their favorite top destination city in Australia. So besides that, there you have Sydney as well, which is quite a populated city in Australia. It's always bustling, but at the same time, Sydney as well has the top university, which is University of Sydney, which comes under the group of 8 university, and there is University of New South Wales as well, which is one of the group of 8 top universities in Sydney. So comparatively, living in Sydney is pretty more expensive than studying in the other parts of Australia. Now, if a student is looking for something which is more budget friendly about where to study in Australia and which part of Australia, so I would personally advise students to look at Adelaide as a city which is located in South Australia. As I mentioned earlier, the student would be eligible for 3 years of post-study work visa. And additional to that, Adelaide is one of the most affordable city in Australia, compare even to Brisbane, which is located in Queensland. The city is comparatively small, but a student can experience the student life in Adelaide and enjoy it in a very student-friendly budget as well. And University of Adelaide, again, which is a group of 8, is also located in Adelaide, which is in South Australia. So these are the different cities where students opt for to study in Australia. So while you're applying for studying in Australia, Australia even allows you to take your spouse with you to Australia. That is another added advantage. It's not only when a person is not married where they can apply to the universities of Australia. No, there is only a Swinburne University in Melbourne which does not accept married applicants. Other than that, the other universities, they do accept, but your spouse visa, where you the primary applicant, and then you can even bring your spouse in Australia to live there. So for the process for the spouse visa, when the primary applicant is taking, your marriage should be valid at least for a year, as one of the process that you need to submit all your marriage certificate, and these are for married applicants who are aiming to take their spouse to Australia. So that will be the student visa and the dependent spouse visa as well, applying for Australia. And besides the programs that I spoke about, and then Australia, good climate condition, Australia is also a good country when you look about in terms of potential of earning as well. So the potential of earning in Australia is comparatively high compared to other countries, but yes, the cost of living as well is equally on the higher side, but the standard of living it's good, with a good lifestyle, you can say. It's a country and a continent as well, so a good country to live and reside, especially if someone is looking for settlement. I know that the investment would be huge, but as a country, it's beautiful. It's worth choosing Australia, as Indians has always been choosing UK and US. So now it is popularly on the top list where students opt for Australia. And for today, I will wind up the session, and I'm extremely sorry again that I started the session slightly 10-15 minutes from the time given, which is 6 p.m. So I would end up the session for today evening, and have a great evening. Thank you.
This.